Hello and welcome to E&B Paving. We are excited to have you join our award-winning team. E&B Paving was founded in Muncie, Indiana in 1967 with the goal of supplying outstanding paving services to customers throughout Northeast Indiana. Since then, we've expanded further across all of Indiana and into the Midwest with our asphalt paving, concrete paving, bridge, and dirt operations. Today, we are proud to build the infrastructure that drives America. We are glad you became a member of the team and hope you enjoyed today's training. Next, I'd like to introduce Mark Michael, Environmental Health and Safety Manager at E&B Paving.
Thank you, Larry. I would like to echo his comments and welcome you to E&B Paving. This safety orientation is meant to provide an overview of E&B Paving safety policies. It is not intended to be a complete compilation of all rules and regulations. You are required to adhere to all federal, state, and local laws, rules, and regulations. But keep in mind, your E&B Paving team is here to assist you. Our commitment to safety starts with the highest levels of management and runs throughout the entire company. If you see something you believe is a hazard, say something to your supervisor. No matter what position you hold within the company, you have a right and a duty to stop work if you find it to be unsafe. All employees are expected to work incident and injury-free and to focus on managing safety at all times. To speak up when you see unsafe work or unsafe conditions. To actively listen when someone is talking to you about opportunities for improvement. To participate in all activities related to safety and health. All employees are also expected to perform work without injury or damage to yourself or other employees. When policies and procedures are not followed, your area management will exercise the disciplinary program. However, serious safety violations could lead to immediate termination.
Safety is the responsibility of everyone at E&B Paving. If you feel unsafe, stop and contact your supervisor. Find the Safety and Health Handbook at enbpaving.com.
Again, I would like to welcome you to E&B Paving. And now I would like to introduce Todd, who will be covering employees' rights and responsibilities.
Thank you, Mark. While at E&B Paving, you have the right to be informed about the hazards at work and to be trained to recognize those hazards and to protect yourself. Participate in all safety-related activities and request information from supervision. As employees of E&B Paving, we have the responsibility for individual safety and that of our coworkers, to report to work well rested, to follow all safety rules and plans, to attend daily crew briefings and to participate, to report unsafe conditions or hazards, to report all work-related injuries or illnesses immediately, to know the hazards and understand how to mitigate those hazards. Today you will be hearing from some of our executive team, so be sure to pay close attention to their insights.
Any act of discrimination or harassment will be subject to discipline. Any violent act, like fighting, will be grounds for dismissal. Every employee also has the right to a workplace free from incidents, injuries, recognized hazards, discrimination, harassment, and violence.
Next, we will share a policy on substance abuse. Let's get it started by turning it over to John Eller.
To maintain a safe workplace environment, we actively enforce our drug and alcohol-free policy. Drug and alcohol abuse on the job site has contributed directly to high absenteeism, poor productivity, accidents, and fatalities. A policy prohibits drugs and alcohol on the job site. You will also report to work free of any controlled substance and/or alcohol.
You may also be tested for controlled substances and/or alcohol for any of the following reasons: pre-employment, reasonable suspicion, involved in a property incident, sustaining an injury that requires medical treatment, random drug testing.
You should be prepared to show individual employee certifications and training records before starting on the project. First responders shall have current certification to include CPR, AED, and bloodborne pathogen certifications. Our safety meetings, commonly referred to as toolbox talks, site-specific training sessions are conducted and documented on a regular basis. Anyone performing flagging operations must have a valid flagger certification.
All crane operators shall have CCO certification. All foremen must complete an OSHA 30-hour training course and have valid CPR, AED, bloodborne pathogen certification. Toolbox talks shall be done on a weekly basis at a minimum. Flagger certification will be from either the union or ATSSA, and card must be on file with the safety department.
Next, let's go back to Todd, who will discuss personal protective equipment with you.
Thanks, John. What you know and what you wear will both protect you. We expect our employees to report to work dressed in a professional manner. This includes full-length pants, leather work boots, and shirts or jackets with no offensive materials.
ANSI approved hard hats are required at all times. Z87 safety glasses are required at all times.
Clear safety glasses shall be worn under welding hoods.
Proper gloves should be worn to protect yourself from the hazards of the task being performed. A leather work boot with a minimum 5-inch upper is required at all times.
ANSI Class 3 safety vests shall be worn at all times.
Fall protection is required when working at a height of 6 feet or more. This shall consist of a full body harness, retractable fall limiter, and an anchor point rated for 5,000 pounds per person. For all night work, if not behind barrier wall, all employees must wear Type E pants or gaiters. In addition to Type E pants and gaiters, reflective tape must be worn on all hard hats. Hearing protection is required above 90 decibels.
And double hearing protection is required above 100 decibels.
Only employees that have been cleared by a licensed healthcare professional and that have been fit tested will be issued a respirator for work activities where air quality cannot be improved by other means.
Clear safety glasses shall be worn under welding hoods, and risk of flying debris, a face shield must be worn in addition to safety glasses. All vests must be zipped to provide 360 degrees of reflectivity. Guardrail systems should be used to mitigate fall hazards. When a guardrail system is not feasible, employees must use fall protection.
Next, let's speak with Tony Evans about keeping our workspaces clean. Tony?
Thanks, Todd. Poor housekeeping not only reflects on the professionalism of our company and your crew, but poses a safety hazard to everyone on the project. All employees should be aware of the slip, trip, and fall hazards around them. Do not carry loads that you can't see over. Keep walking, working surfaces free of debris and slippery substances. 3 points of contact must be used when getting onto or off of equipment. In addition, you should face the piece of equipment when mounting or dismounting. Employees must be cautious when working around a heavy equipment and/or materials to avoid pinch points for your hands and crush points for your body. Always be aware of your surroundings and take extra precaution to not get caught in between or struck by a piece of equipment. So what if it happens? What if we have an incident? You report all injuries, incidents, and near misses to your supervisor immediately, no matter how minor it might seem. Unless it is a life or death situation, all injured workers must be treated at a company-approved medical facility.
All exposed rebar, form pins, etc. should be capped at all times. If a serious incident occurs, maintain the scene until it has been documented by the safety department. Emergency numbers shall be posted on all job site bulletin boards.
Now we go back to Todd to tell you what you need to do before you start your workday.
Thanks, Tony. Your supervisor or foreman will use daily safety huddles to discuss the scope of work for the day. They will identify the known hazards and what tools or actions will be used to mitigate those hazards. Before any employee is allowed to drive a company vehicle, he or she must be cleared by the Human Resources Department. Personal cell phone use while working is prohibited. Hands-free cell phone use while driving is allowed. Employees are not allowed to sit or rest on top of or lean against barrier wall while next to live traffic.
No personal listening devices, such as radios, etc., shall be used while working.
Now that you're familiar with work zone safety, Brad will help us go into the maintenance and use of power tools. Brad?
Thanks, Todd. All hand and power tools must be inspected before use. If defective, they must be repaired before they are used. Guards should never be removed from power tools. Remember, you must always wear the proper PPE for the tool you are using. While using a power tool, you may be working in a confined space. Let's discuss the best practices for working in a confined space. Any employee performing work activities related to a confined space must go through confined space training.
If immediate repair is not possible, the tool must be tagged out of service until the repair is made. If you find a power tool without a guard, tag it out of service and report it to your foreman. If using a tool in a confined space, please reference E&B's Paving's Confined Space Permit documentation.
For all excavations of 5 foot or more, a competent person must be on site. All hazards associated with excavation should be covered at the pre-job briefing with employees who are exposed to the hazards. Some type of protection system is required for all excavations 5 foot or greater. All excavations must be kept free of standing water, rate and aerial lift.
All spoil piles must be kept at a 2 foot minimum from the edge. Any excavation 20 feet or more must be designed by a professional engineer. Safe means of ingress/egress, like ladders, is required for excavations over 4 feet deep and must be provided every 25 feet laterally. Barricades, warning lights, etc. will be placed around any unattended excavation.
From subgrade to aerial, let's talk about ladder safety. All ladders must be inspected before use, and remember to always use 3 points of contact when using a ladder. All straight or extension ladders must have safety feet and be secured when in use. Only one person on a ladder at a time. Only employees who have been through E&B's aerial lift safety training can work from or operate an aerial lift.
Never use a step ladder as a straight ladder. All step ladders must have the legs fully extended and the braces locked. A ladder must extend 3 feet above the landing area. A 4-to-1 ratio should be used when placing for climbing. Metal ladders are not allowed.
Let's go back to Todd, who will discuss best practices in electrical safety.
Thanks, Brad. Before we get started, you should know only qualified employees shall be allowed to work on electrical equipment. All cords and welding leads shall be inspected before each use. Always use proper lockout tagout procedures when working on an energy source, whether that be electrical or mechanical. Remember, if it's not grounded, it's not dead. Always keep the minimum distance from a power line. Work should never be performed closer than 10 feet from any power line. Foremen and supervisors should identify all overhead power lines in relation to that day's work activities. All employees must stay clear of any piece of equipment or vehicle that has come in contact with an overhead power line. If you are inside a vehicle that strikes an overhead power line, stay inside unless fire is in immediate danger.
GFCIs are required on all extension cords and portable power tools. All GFCIs should be routinely tested. Make sure that overhead power line signage is in place. Use spotters when crossing under OPLs with equipment.
As mentioned before, all appropriate PPE must be worn when welding or cutting. All equipment and PPE must be inspected before each use. A fire extinguisher must be present. Always wear clear safety glasses underneath your welding hood. All hoses must have flashback arresters at regulator end. When in use, cylinders shall be stored in the upright position and in the appropriate size cart.
All cylinders should be stored upright, caps in place, and secured. Oxygen and acetylene cylinders must be stored at least 20 feet apart.
If a fire extinguisher is used, it must be immediately replaced, and supervision must be notified that it was used. I want to properly show you how to use a fire extinguisher. First, we must pull the pin out. Then you want to aim the nozzle and squeeze the handle and sweep back and forth and front to back of the fire while putting it out. Once fire extinguisher will not put out the fire, get out and call the fire department.
No smoking or ignition source is allowed within 25 feet of fuel oil storage or 50 feet from flammable liquid storage. No matter what size fire, immediately report it to the safety department.
Only employees that have gone through E&B Paving's forklift training are authorized to operate a forklift. Contact the safety department or human resources to receive more information on how you can be trained.
Get help for any load over 50 pounds that can't be lifted mechanically. Never walk under or allow anyone else to walk under a raised load.
Now let's pass it over to Mike and get some helpful tips on material handling. Mike?
Thanks, Todd. You've all heard the advice to lift with your legs and not your back. It applies to the work site as well. Also remember to keep your hands and feet away from pinch points when handling materials. Always determine the weight of the load and use the proper device and/or equipment for the size.
Remove all damaged rigging and hoisting equipment from service and tag out until repaired or destroyed. Always inspect your rigging before each use and document your inspection. A qualified rigger must be present for all lifts. You shall use a tag line on all lifts, no matter the size. Inspect all rigging equipment prior to each use. Safety latches and positive locking devices shall be used while rigging and hoisting.
Now let's discuss lifting with the assistance of a crane. E&B Paving requires that all crane operators have CCO certification. Any item that is not working properly means a crane is out of service until repaired. It is important to note that the crane operator has final say on all lifts.
Pre-shift inspections are required and the forms must stay with the equipment. The operator shall sound the horn to warn of a load being lifted.
All operators must be qualified to run a piece of equipment and must inspect the equipment before each use. Seat belts are required on equipment with a cab or rollover protection. Always face the machine and use 3 points of contact climbing onto or out of the machine.
Hard hat use is mandatory in an open cab equipment. Never allow anyone to ride on your equipment. Backup alarms and working strobes are required at all times. Use a spotter if backing with limited visibility. Seatbelt use is mandatory on equipment with enclosed cabs or rollover protection.
Next, Todd will share more information about the chemicals we work with. Todd?
Thanks, Mike. You have the right to know what chemicals you're exposed to and working with in the workplace environment.
The globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals, or GHS, provides uniform guidance on safety data sheets for all chemicals. E&B Paving has all safety data sheets readily available at eandbpaving.com. The contents of all containers must be labeled. All foremen have the necessary PPE to deal with the body fluids. Only trained employees should deal with blood or body fluids. If an injury requires treatment beyond on-site first aid, an authorized company representative shall accompany the person to an approved healthcare facility.
No guns or weapons are allowed on the work site. Use the buddy system. Always allow someone to know where you are. Secure all equipment and materials each day. A heat-related emergency is the body's way of saying it's having a hard time maintaining a normal temperature. Employees should continually take fluids throughout their shift to guard against a heat-related emergency. If the body can't keep up, then the emergency. If the body can't keep up, then the person suffers effects ranging from heat cramps to heat exhaustion and then finally heat stroke. Just because you have dry skin and clothes doesn't mean you're not sweating. Remembering that it takes 1 to 2 weeks for your body to adjust to heat. This adaptation is quickly lost, so your body will need time to adjust after a vacation too.
On a very warm day, you can lose as much as 2 liters of fluid. Use crew rotation to prevent prolonged exposure times. Refer to OSHA heat stress guidelines.
Hypothermia occurs from prolonged exposure to cold or water. This condition could result in bodily harm or even death.
Layered clothing, waterproof boots, and gloves, and other items like this give you an advantage against hypothermia. Insulate the body, especially high heat loss areas. They include head, neck, armpits, side of the chest, and groin.
Thank you for your time today. I'd like to remind you to stay incident and injury-free every hour of every day.
At E&B Paving, we place a high value on the safety and well-being of our workforce. Our goal is 0 injuries every hour of every day. Welcome to E&B Paving.